Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to Progressive Field on what ultimately was not a great night for the Cleveland Guardians. They lose Game 4 of the American League Championship Series to the New York Yankees, a final score of 8-6, and now they are facing elimination tomorrow night in Game 5. I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for joining us, Cleveland Guardians on SI. Of course, you can follow us on all of our social media channels. We're pretty easy to find, and certainly you can find us on our YouTube channel as well. We'd certainly appreciate it if you'd subscribe there and like our content, so we can keep doing more of this stuff for you, especially throughout the playoffs and as we get into the off season. This one really stings. Cleveland never led in the game, and yet always felt in it, with the exception of maybe the fifth inning, I guess, when you were down at that point 6-2, and it was certainly frustrating. But the Guardians clawed right back in it the way that they have pretty much all year long. This game resembled the way the Guardians play baseball pretty regularly. But I think ultimately I walk away from this game feeling frustrated the same way that I have, otherwise in the series. It has everything to do with the bats in the Yankee lineup that you can't let beat you. And they did. And, here we are again after 4 games in this series. Giancarlo Stanton and Juan Soto and Aaron Judge this week have killed Guardians pitching. And also tonight, obviously, got a home run from Austin Wells, which stings in a different way because while he certainly has had quite a bit of success at times this year, he's been ice cold in the playoffs. But he made Gavin Williams pay for a bad pitch early in the game. And tonight's final score was 8-6. As we show you the box score from tonight. And listen, this is going to show a good offensive day. But there are a couple of numbers that will jump out at you here that were extremely frustrating. And the first one is in the top right-hand corner, 12 men left on base for Cleveland. You can't win playoff games when you leave 12 runners on base. Just incredibly frustrating that the Guardians had chance after chance after chance and couldn't have an inning that really made it feel like you'd bleed the Yankees out. Yes, they had a 3-run inning in the 7th, which was a great response to the 3-run top of the 6th. But way too many times tonight, Cleveland had big opportunities to really make it hurt, and only scoring once in the first, once in the third, once in the 8th in particular, when you had big chances in each of those innings to really blow it open and put up crooked numbers. That comes back to haunt you. And listen, I think there's a lot of people that are going to sit here and want to, crucify Emmanuel Clase for having a second consecutive bad night. And listen, it hasn't been a good postseason for Clase by any stretch of the imagination. He's not even close to being as effective here in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. And some of the numbers, frankly, are kind of jarring. He and Cade Smith both this evening faltered. And here's a great way to put it in perspective. During the regular season, Clase and Cade Smith combined to allow 3 total home runs against 559 batters. They've allowed 3 home runs across the last 2 games here in the postseason. And, it starts to make you wonder about if Cleveland's just kind of running out of gas. They're certainly not going to say that. They're not going to even allude to it or admit that it could be a thing publicly in the clubhouse. But I think there's something to be said for the bullpen usage. The Guardians bullpen has worked 23 2/3 innings in the first 4 games of this series. 23 2/3. That's the 3rd most innings pitched by a reliever, or I should say by a relief staff, through the first 4 games of an LCS all time. Only the 2021 Astros and the 2018 Brewers had relief pitchers that worked more than what we've seen from Cleveland here in these first couple games. And listen, Gavin Williams I thought was okay, but you can't make mistakes to really good hitters. And, ultimately tonight it wasn't quite good enough. And how often have we seen that from Gavin Williams this year where, the first inning's been brutal. His earned run average in the first inning's like more than 6 1/4. And then it is tapered off from there. But he's regularly dug himself holes. And tonight, I think the problem for Gavin was that he wasn't locating his curveball at all in that first inning. And obviously, eventually paid for it with a couple of those home runs. As far as Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase are concerned, you get to this point in the season, and there is this element of you dance with the girl you brought, right? You got here riding these guys. You're not going to suddenly decide we got to flip the script and change things completely and do something drastically different. So, you're sort of living and dying by the way those guys are going to perform. But if you look at the advanced metrics for Cade Smith, his fastball velocity's down a little bit tonight. Just didn't quite have the same life. And I specifically asked him about that postgame in the clubhouse, and he said he didn't feel any different, but that ultimately he would go back and look and, try to work with the coaching staff to see if they could identify anything that might be leading to that. It's natural to think that, even if you're pumping on adrenaline and you feel really good, mechanically it didn't look like there was anything different about him tonight. It truly might just be the fact that he's thrown a lot in a short time frame. And, for me, one of the more dejecting moments of the night was watching Cade have a tough outing, because it's been equally as rare as Emmanuel Clase stubbing his toe. And yet, both of them tonight couldn't quite get it done. And I know that that's certainly going to bother them, and they got to flush it quickly because the series is not over. It feels like it's over. Cleveland's got a pretty steep hill to climb, but it is not impossible that they can go win 3 games in a row. They've done that several times throughout the course of the year. Teams that have a 3-1 lead in a best of 7 have gone on to win that series 79 of 93 times. So that means the Yankees have, historically anyways, they have an 85% chance to win this series. But that also means that on 14 occasions, somebody's blown a 3-1 lead. Cleveland certainly knows what that feels like in the 2016 World Series. It's not impossible that the Guardians can come back and do this. They desperately needed last night's game to avoid a 3-0 deficit. This really hurts because you're behind 6-2. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen. And you scratch across 3 runs in the 6th inning. Thankfully, Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor both came up with big doubles. You did it against Clay Holmes, who also has pitched really well in the postseason. And for whatever reason, again, just couldn't come up with yet another base hit to kind of get this, get the floodgates blown wide open. Just wasn't quite enough. The Yankees, they finished the game with 8 runs on 10 hits and 5 runners left on base. That's really efficient. And they scored those 8 runs across 4 innings, with only one of those 4 innings being a 1-run frame. 2 in the first, 3 in the 6th, and obviously 2 in the 9th. So they scored in bunches. And when you're in the playoffs, you've got to find ways to score in bunches and apply, some serious pressure. And I don't want to sit here and say the Guardians couldn't come up with a clutch hit tonight, because they had a lot of clutch hits tonight. They just didn't have enough of them. And I think it's easy, as we talk about some of these missed opportunities, I think it's easy to look at the end of the game and say, oh, this is Clase's fault. He choked again. Like, I just don't think that's completely fair. No, he didn't pitch well. No, it wasn't good enough. But look at what happened tonight compared to last night. The base hit that Rizzo had, pretty good pitch, not hit hard. It's baseball. Sometimes you're going to give up soft singles. The next base hit was hit on a rope. And that's where all of a sudden you kind of felt like maybe this thing isn't going to go great. Obviously, the little ground ball to shortstop. Did Rocchio bobble the ball? Yes. Was it technically ruled an error? Yes. I'm not sure he would have made the play at first base. It was hit really soft. Runner was getting down the line really fast. Certainly didn't have a play at the plate with the way that ball was hit. It's just one of those, it just sometimes just doesn't happen for you. And obviously the Yankees scored an additional run and added on. In some ways, it was a little bit impressive that Clase kept it to only 2, because that inning could have gotten way away from them. So listen, the season's not over, and the Guardians have to figure out how to rebound. I want to play a quick clip here from Stephen Vogt from his press conference postgame here, because the one thing that I didn't agree with today, and I'm not paid to make the decisions. It's that's voters' job. I did not like pitching to Stanton when you had first base open, and he has killed Cleveland pitching in the postseason. In fact, coming into tonight, Stanton had 6 base hits against Cleveland baseball in the postseason in his career, and every one of them was a home run, all 6 of them. And he hit another one tonight. In the playoffs, Stanton has 15 home runs and 33 RBIs in 35 games. That's on pace for like a 70 homer season with 150 ribbies if you would like stretch that out over the course of 162. He has been unreal in the postseason. When you have first base open, I wouldn't have pitched to him. That's not how Stephen Vogt felt. Here's what he had to say post-game when he was asked about whether or not he considered walking.
No, I didn't. We got Cade on the mound. He's the best strikeout reliever, we have. And in that situation, I trust Cade to make pitches there. And, he's been doing it all year.
You had him, what, 0-2, what happened?
It looked like he just didn't quite get the fastball up, and Stanton got to it.
I disagree, but, okay. You respect the decision, and look, he decided that he wanted Cade Smith to face Giancarlo, and maybe there's more to it that he's not willing to say, and if that's the case, then okay. Obviously, it stings because it didn't work. And look, if Cade strikes out Stanton, then he strikes him out, and, maybe it's not a talking point. But that was the one move the entire game that I was like, man, I really would have done this differently. And hindsight's 20/20 because he hit the home run, and I understand that. But, it was a tough moment. And, look, give the Guardians credit because they go down 6-2, and they figured out a way to battle back in a way that I'm not sure too many other teams around Major League Baseball realistically, have the mental wherewithal to do. It's the reason that they're playing this late in the season, and, they're 3 wins away from going to the World Series. And unfortunately, they're also 1 loss away now from having their season come to a close. One other note about Clase that I thought was pertinent. He did not give up 3 or more hits in an outing the entire regular season, not once in 74 appearances. Tonight was the 3rd time that he's allowed 3 or more hits in his postseason opportunities. I don't know. It's hard to put a finger on it. There's this weird feeling for me of like the power versus power, the Yankee strength, the muscle in the thump in the middle of the order compared to the flame-throwing bullpen that the Guardians have. And it's like the most fast, physical, testosterone-infused moments of a game. And it feels like this heavyweight fight. And for whatever reason, the Yankees seem to have Cleveland's upper hand in those moments. I thought Eric Sabrowski was terrific tonight when he pitched. I thought Cleveland found ways to use some other relievers that looked really good. Tim Herron was good when he was in there. Hunter Gaddis, good for Hunter Gaddis after last night getting pulled and not having a chance to face Aaron Judge. When he pitched in the 8th inning, Gaddis looked really, really good. In fact, that whole inning was, it's about as good as Gaddis has looked all season long. To go out and strike out Judge the way that he did, and then, gosh, Chisholm and Stanton, 3 pitches, 3 strikes, see you later, strikes out the side. It was really good. It was good for Hunter. And, I have a hunch that Hunter's going to factor into tomorrow's game somewhere along the way. The biggest question I think Stephen Vogt has to wrestle with tonight is how is he going to use Cade Smith and use Emmanuel Clase tomorrow? And maybe the answer is really simple. Maybe he says to himself, these guys have done it all year. I can't change my plan and show a lack of faith in guys that have gotten it done over and over again, because maybe that sends the wrong message to the team. Maybe that's what he does. Is there an opportunity to do it a little bit differently? I don't know. I guess we'll see what tomorrow night brings. I don't imagine Emmanuel Clase not closing the game. I would hope in a perfect world, if the Guardians have a lead tomorrow, and let's say they have a comfortable lead, I wonder if you bring Clase into the game simply to give him a chance to get some rhythm going, and maybe get a couple easy outs. Maybe you give him the day off. Maybe in a perfect world, you blow them out. You don't even need to use the high leverage guys in your bullpen. There was no Pedro Avila tonight. I asked Stephen Vogt pregame if what we've seen from Pedro Avila, especially in the postseason here, has warranted consideration for him to be in some more high leverage innings. Hasn't given up a run in 4 innings so far in the playoffs. He's been really solid. And he ultimately said yes to answer that question. But tonight, Avila didn't get in the game, and that's okay. There were some other guys that pitched well out of the bullpen. And I mentioned him already, but I really liked Eric Sabrowski. And listen, I thought Gavin Williams was okay. You can't make mistakes over the middle of the plate, and you have to be able to locate your curveball early in the game. His second inning of work was definitely a better inning. But you also can't dig yourself a multi-run hole before you've even come to the plate against a team like this in New York. And now the Guardians tomorrow have their work cut out for them. They've got Tanner Bybee on the bump, and they certainly feel confident in Tanner because he's the guy that all season long they've leaned on. And I think there were probably 2 different ways to spin this. Tanner threw, 39 pitches in Game 2. And because it was so short, that was Tuesday. He's going to pitch on Saturday now. It's basically 1 fewer day of rest. Stephen Vogt has been adamant that he said, listen, I don't care that it's the playoffs. I will never put players in harm's way. Player safety is number 1 priority for me. Those are his words. And so he wanted to make sure that Tanner was going to be okay, but even told him after he pulled him out of the game, hey, listen, felt like I needed to make a move here, but there's a chance you could pitch again sooner than later. So the idea of, okay, listen, after the Guardians lose in New York and then win last night, now you can go say to yourself, okay, listen, either we're going to be in a series tied at 2 and you put your ace on the mound with a chance to try to take a series lead and hold home court, if you will, or you're going to be down 3-1 and you got your best guy going against a pretty good pitcher in Carlos Rodon tomorrow, but you got your best guy going with, everything to lose, right? You got to win or else you're done and the Yankees will be going back to the World Series. So Cleveland's going to have a lot of confidence in Tanner tomorrow. I'm very interested how deep he's going to be allowed to go in this game with his pitch count. I imagine in a perfect world that they want to ride him as long as they can, because I don't see a scenario where Tanner could come back and pitch again in this series. Let's say Cleveland wins tomorrow. I don't see Bybee pitching on Monday or Tuesday. That just doesn't seem fair to him, given what Stephen Vogt has said about never backing down from a player safety perspective. And he's clearly got a lot of faith in the other guys in the bullpen. So much like Cleveland needed a really solid outing from Matthew Boyd yesterday, I think they got to ride Tanner Bybee tomorrow as long as they realistically can. And walking that tightrope of, do you pull him? It's an early moment. Maybe it's a little tense. Are you playing from behind? Do you have the lead? What are the questions you have to ask of yourself? And how willing are you to gamble with Bybee in a tight spot? In the same way that Stephen Vogt has had incredible faith in Clase and in Cade Smith, I would like to see him have that same faith tomorrow in Bybee and maybe leave him in the game in a couple of challenging situations, because given how many innings the bullpen has thrown, I think you got to find a way to get at least 4, if not 5, tomorrow out of your starter. If you only have Bybee go through the lineup once, I don't know if that's setting you up for great success. The good news is if you win tomorrow and you punch a ticket back to New York, you at least have an off day to theoretically get everybody reset in the bullpen, and you worry about that when it comes. But I really think it's important for Tanner Bybee tomorrow to go out there and be the ace pitcher that he needs to be for this Cleveland Guardians team. This is the biggest start of his life. It's the biggest start of his career. He has to play well tomorrow. He has to. Tanner has had a really good season. I don't know that he's had an elite season. I don't know that he is a bona fide ace of a staff. As long as Shane Bieber's wearing a Guardians uniform, Shane's the guy in that room. But if the Guardians are going to build this thing long term, Tanner is proving that he can be a really good major league pitcher. And, the Guardians have had some pretty good performances in the playoffs over the years from guys that are not bona fide stars, like Josh Tomlin or Ryan Merritt, who's going to be here tomorrow to throw out the ceremonial first pitch. Obviously, Ryan Merritt threw a huge game against Toronto back in 2016 in the ALCS. So let's hope Tanner Bybee can put a good performance together and give Cleveland the life that they need. And other than that, the message tomorrow has to be the same as it was today. You got to make somebody else beat you. For crying out loud, like Soto and Judge and Stanton, they can't be the difference in the game tomorrow. They can't be. You have to let somebody else beat you. Jazz Chisholm is not locked in at the plate at all. Austin Wells, I don't care if it's Trevino or Rizzo or whoever. I thought, just if we're being honest, I thought Rizzo played horrible tonight. I thought it was a way, way below average game for Anthony Rizzo. Defensively, not locked in at all. Obviously the error that allowed the game to be tied is the one that, that gets the most attention. But there were 3 or 4 different times I watched him play tonight. I'm just thinking, if he's on the field, he's got to give better effort than what we saw tonight. It just wasn't a good night at all from Rizzo. So I still think the Yankees are flawed. I think they're good, but I don't think they're that good. They're not the evil Empire Yankees that, that used to run rampant on the American League where it felt like everybody else was playing for second place. That's not this team. In fact, I don't know which person it was when we got in the elevator to go down to the clubhouse. I actually heard somebody say, can you believe that a team this bad is going to play in the World Series? With the idea that, okay, it's 3-1, the series is over. And that again, it was a New York media member. I don't remember who it was. But to that person's point, they're okay. And so far, they've been better than Cleveland. And they obviously have been good enough to have the best record in the American League. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But, man, that team is just not they don't have the same fear factor that we have so regularly seen from New York. And there's a lot of base running mistakes. There's a lot of bad defense. There's a lot of holes in their pitching staff. But, my gosh, Judge and Soto and Stanton are professional hitters in every sense of the word. And they have torched Cleveland pitching. So here's to hoping that tomorrow night Tanner Bybee can get it right. And the rest of the bullpen can pick up Cade Smith and Emmanuel Clase and try to help them get us back in the right spot. All right, first pitch tomorrow, 8:08. Once again, it's a night game tomorrow night. And might be the last game at Progressive Field here in 2024. Might not, but it might be. So if you don't have tickets, I think we got a press release before the game today that there were very few tickets remaining. By this point, they may be sold out, but I'm sure you might be able to find them on the secondary market if you're willing to fork over a pretty penny for that. But it should be fun. Carlos Rodon throwing for the Yankees. He's obviously had some really good moments in his career, especially ones against Cleveland. But he has also been a little vulnerable this year. And perhaps Cleveland can jump out and play with a lead early in the game. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. In the meantime, we got plenty of coverage lined up for you on Cleveland Guardians on SI. Go to si.com/MLB/Guardians for all the latest written content on the team. You can follow us on all of our social media accounts. My Twitter account is @BrendanGulick22. Depending on where you're watching, you might be on Twitter at the moment. Certainly on our YouTube channel. We live stream this afterward on YouTube as well. And would really appreciate it if you'd subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, we'll see you back here at Progressive Field tomorrow night. Game 5, the Yankees and the Guardians. New York leads the series 3-1 after an 8-6 win here tonight.